Alright, boys, I got your good news. Alright, good news, right? So, I did message the Arch developers today because I was like, oh, fuck it, the SF isn't gonna do anything about this. So why don't I just let the people know whose code is being infringed upon? That, XeroLinux is closed source and, paywalled. Paywalled proprietary software. So, I let him know and I posted the chat logs, between me and Steve. Because that was my evidence that that he was violating GPL, and they were like, "Oh shit, that's my code. I can't have that." So one of them actually messaged him on Mastodon saying, "I don't actually know what the post said, but." Then I get a message from Steve saying, "Oh, that was a misunderstanding. I would totally give source code to anybody that asked for it, even though the screenshot I showed said the opposite of that. That he would only give out source code to people that he wanted to." So then he messaged me again today saying, okay, I've made the source code public, so you can always get the source code. I'm like, that's really all I wanted, because I saw this happen with StormOS, where Benji thought that he could just make a proprietary Linux distro, and I was like, you can't do that. You can't do that with Linux. You have to have source availability, otherwise you're in violation of the GPL. But like, what do you do when people like spit in the face of the GPL? You can't do anything. So all you can do is what I did, which is, hey, here's the developers. I'm gonna tell them that their code's being infringed on, and hopefully they will knock some sense into the person, because like he had told me that he didn't want to debate it with me, and I'm like, cool, I won't debate it with you because obviously you think so lowly of me that I'm just not even worth the discussion, especially not worth publicizing your code, you know. So yeah, I mean, it just makes me feel like shit, because it's like, now I gotta go behind your back to the developers to get them to smack you down, because suddenly when a developer's involved, oh, then it matters, and it's like, oh shit, now my reputation's on the line, because it's not just one person bitching at me. Now it is literal developers of the project I'm using telling me to stop, you know. Um, because in the open source community, there's a lot of fragmentation, there's a lot of disagreeing opinions, but the one thing people can generally agree on is don't violate the license, you know? And that's kind of where we are right now, where he thought he could just violate the license. Turns out he couldn't, because somebody was going to let people know, hey, you need to stick to the terms that we agreed upon when we made this project, you know? And it's it's embarrassing, it really, because I don't want to have to be the person to do that. The community should be self-correcting. I shouldn't have to, as an end user, I don't need to be the police for this. And generally speaking, it is like that, but there's these smaller projects where people think that they're kind of above the law, really. I mean, I can't really call it illegal, but it is technically illegal to violate the license in such a way, But of course, it doesn't really ever go to court, So unless you're like Red Hat, where violating GPL means you can be sued, who's gonna go after some dude in Lebanon? Like, it's unenforceable. And somebody did ping me today saying that the GPL is enforceable, but he didn't really link to anything. He linked to like Luke Smith's page, but it didn't really explain that the GPL was enforceable. So I don't know. You know, I personally still think it kind of isn't. Because like, what do you do? What do you do when somebody does this? So, anyways, it's just kind of a bad situation all around. But like I was saying, is that because the open source community is so tight knit about this one thing, like if you're trying to make money on it, especially, which is what he's trying to do, that can ruin your reputation real fast if you decide you're just not going to obey the license, because then everybody's going to be on your ass about it. That's how you get blacklisted. That's how you lose all your connections with YouTubers, because they're like, oh, I'm not going to mess with the guy that violates GPL. It's people would shit all over me for that. So it sucks by association. And for somebody that's really trying to make a name for himself in open source, you have to put in the, or sorry, you have to obey the rules. You can't just like break the rules because you're one person, and your project isn't super big or people generally don't care, because people need to care about it. You can't just like have all these little forks coming around breaking the license terms, because then like what are you gonna do about it? Or like what are these projects gonna do when they're like, oh shit, even though we license our code in this specific copyleft way, anybody can just do whatever they want and it becomes lawlessness at that point. So we need to enforce when people break the rules. We need to have a community that is self-correcting, and there do need to be some sort of, like, I'm not saying that like everybody has to be like the police about this, but there does need to be a community that will not stand for such egregious failures in compliance, really. That's about it. But I am glad that he publicized the source code. It wasn't necessary that he made it completely public, and I let him know that. I said all that matters is you have source availability to your customers. Now, that's probably going to rub the Arch community the wrong way, because they probably don't want you to lock your source code behind a paywall while Arch is free. But in the end, I guess they can't really stop you from doing that. But having this misinterpretation of the license is dangerous at best and malicious at worst. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where I hate having to do it. I hate having to call upon the developers of the project to really just smack down somebody, But he wouldn't listen to me. He didn't care what I had to say. He thought he was above it. And so I'm like, okay, well, you're not. You're not above it. So you get to deal with this the same way as anybody else would. Because I don't want him to lose his reputation over this. I don't. I'm mentioning it now because there is a broader subject of this to talk about, and this one specific example is just what's topical. But open source is a community where you should be able to thrive and learn from your mistakes, and I think that by not listening to me, really, you know, that he's put himself in a very dangerous position where he could potentially lose all of the goodwill he's built up, because like what all I can do is tell him to stop breaking the license. That's really all I can do. And if he doesn't want to do it, then shit, I got to get the people that should be involved. I have to get them involved. And that's, I mean, it can ruin you, because now whoever saw those chat logs, they don't like him, and the Arch developers are all pissed off about this because now they've seen the chat logs. And so they're like, okay, well, if he continues doing anything like this, please let us know and we'll put him on a full Arch Linux blacklist. You know what I mean? They're like, I will put him on the shit list, and he won't have any friends in the Arch community anymore if he keeps that up. So because the situation is so dangerous for him, I'm like, we just need to shut this down now. You need to fix it now, and if you're not going to listen to me, I will find somebody you will listen to, because it's important. We can't have this happening in open source or free software, as I was told to call it, because obviously there is overlap, but free software is technically what this would be, because it is free. And it's just, why am I dealing with this now? Why is it up to me? And that is one thing that I actually do like about being part of like the broader Linux group. Is not only can I make videos on it, but I feel like I'm able to contribute. And while I prefer not to have to contribute by fighting with people, I do. The distribution I'm on, I reported a few issues with it and they got fixed. So I like being in a place where I'm able to have a voice, you know. And even if people don't take me seriously, in this case they did, you know. At first they didn't want to take me seriously, but now they do. So This is one of those things. It's one of those days. But I'll see you guys later. Thanks.